What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing a state of the market and stock picks for November 15th, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this glorious market. Now, this week is actually a pretty tame week for the most part. We do have the PPI tomorrow, which will have some weight as people are back to this whole read the data and assume you're knowing what essentially the Fed is going to do. Uh, Everybody's leaning towards a 50-point basis move on the next December monetary policy. And if the next core comes in again with another big drop, we could see 50, if not a 25% or 25-point basis move on the next meeting. But again, it really depends on that next core. So being said, that is good, but it's not to say that the Fed is not angry at what is currently going on with this push that we are getting. The Fed thinks it's, again, very premature. The Fed thinks that we don't know. We can't get ahead of ourselves. Again, inflation can turn around and start breaking all-time highs again tomorrow. So we have to be well aware of that. And so the Fed is trying to essentially put that out there to not go nuts, even though this is a stock market, and the stock market doesn't make any sense majority of the time. And understand that the stock market is based off perception that things are turning and things are getting better. It's not to say that those things that go on in the background that I talk about, right, once they become headline news, then that's kind of what changes the tone of that perspective, and then causes the market to start flushing. So that's essentially how the market will work. And right now, again, we got the PPI tomorrow, so we'll have some weight. We were kind of stuck today. We started selling towards the end of the day. We're naturally due for a pullback. So tomorrow, what I'm really watching is to see if we either one bounce at that roughly around the 3,900 mark, or we can drop even down to the 38.33 mark. Depending on how bad that data or good that data is tomorrow, might give us some sort of momentum to the downside or to the upside. Ultimately, there is still a lot of earnings going on during this week, a lot of value plays, and a lot of the heartbeat industry essentially is what the value play is. As you do got Target, Walmart, Nvidia, some of the big hitters in value reporting this week. And so as we noticed, FedEx had a really poor earnings just about a month ago or so, and essentially almost take the market by itself. So again, it's being really interesting to see, especially with those value plays, what's going on with their inventory, because they had a massive orders put in during the pandemic, and then now that everything is essentially been backfilled, now they got tons of stuff, unnecessary supply that they can't get rid of, so they're having to reduce a lot of costs on a lot of these different supply to get it off the shelf, so they have shelf room for all the seasonal items. So it'll be interesting to see how that approach is. One thing to keep note of too, something where I say you can't believe in every rally, because Amazon just laid off I think it's about 10,000 more employees, are going to lay off 10,000 more employees. So this is still the situation of what happens with rates being at such a high cost right now, and understand that this isn't going away yet. Yes, even if the Fed come with only a 50 or 25-point basis move, it is still very, very elevated right now, and they're not tapering it back. And they said they wouldn't do that. They're going to hold it at a rate and see how inflation acts first. So that means once they actually stop with rate increases, they're going to sit and see how long it's going to take for probably a month or two to try to really determine what happens with inflation when they do finally stop, which we're kind of estimating to be around February at this point. And then if that's the case, then they can start taking some off. Again, this is not a quick process, because if you go too fast, You have to understand that inflation can creep and start running very rapidly as soon as that does happen. As again, you're dealing with emotional people out here in when they find something, if they rush to some sort of thing, whatever that may be. Currently, right now, it's rentals and services. If they rush into something else, you can have this quick spike in inflation and put us right back over 9.1. So that's what we're trying to be cautious about right now. Right now, again, a lot of people are on severance packages, so you're not going to really see numbers. You're not going to see correct numbers. This is why you can't go off the data. There's a lot of stuff, and I don't believe in a lot of the data because a lot of it's falsified. And when I look for really like true pivot data, when I talk about monetary policy, when I talk about essentially core inflation right now. Now, again, this changes on whatever cycle you're going through in the market. This isn't always the case, but this is what we're dealing with right now. And so, again, monetary policy and core, I'll be back to back 13th, 14th next month. Till then, we don't really have a lot. We have some earnings and we have the holidays. We have Thanksgiving next week. So things are going to gradually just naturally get slow. So just be mindful of that. Then you get about 3 weeks before Christmas, and it's going to be naturally just slow until the beginning of the new year when we start reporting Q4, which again, normally you have the Christmas rally, and understand that normally the market pumps really good during that time. But right now it's up for debate. It's not saying it can't happen. It could lead into that as long as there's no major events play out. We can still get a very good, especially if some of this data that has more weight again starts lining up with this thesis that we've hit top, which things currently are pointing that we could be hitting a top on inflation, which is great. But again, the next thing you have to focus on is how is the consumer handling all this stuff. Yes, we could have hit peak on inflation, but how is the consumer doing? Savings rates are all-time low. Again, things are looking bad. The rates aren't coming down. They're not going to come down tomorrow on the next monetary policy enough to where it's going to save another 10,000 jobs. That is like 6 months down the road. And so you have to understand this high rate increase is going to continue to put a lot of pressure in and essentially test the system for the next couple months. And so those people that are already at low savings are in trouble. Already maxing out their credit cards are in trouble. Getting laid off, yeah, you may have severance package. Hopefully you can get a new job before that happens, right? And so ultimately understand really where we're kind of sitting at. We're still not in a good spot. Yes, good first steps, but it's a long process. There's absolutely nothing fast about it. So again, tomorrow I'm looking for a pullback to one of those two levels. We'll see if that happens. The dollar, this is something you really need to be watching, is the dollar. And if it breaks this 105, if the dollar can break 105, you're going to have a massive, massive rally. This thing is going to sell off heavily, and you'll get a massive rally in the market. So that is one thing I'm watching very, very closely to determine what happens there with the dollar. As far as Bitcoin is concerned, obviously the FTX is still very fresh. It's only lost about 4K since the Bitcoin whole fiasco with crypto and FTX, and it's still unwinding as we go. So that I think is still on eggshells, at least for another week, unless something else comes of the FTX thing. It's still holding 16 very well. I think there's still a lot of fear in that industry, but I think a lot of the main coins are still doing okay for this point, and that essentially being Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. Everything else is kind of sus at this point, trying to determine what is going to happen with crypto in the upcoming months here. Now, Tesla is the one obviously watching this one. This one is again, this one has really stayed down heavily because Elon's been selling very, very heavily, and he hasn't announced that he's done selling. When he does announce he's done selling, you can almost guarantee that Tesla is going to rocket from that point, wherever the market is. As long as the market is holding, I think Tesla will make one big, big rip back, and I think it could at least hit the 222 from where it's currently sitting at, which is at 190. So I'm really watching Tesla closely here in the markets. Again, I don't think the market's really going to sell off unless some black swan event does play out. Then I don't really see anything happening, and I don't see that really happening between now and the new year. Again, this is a very slow time, and not a lot really goes on. The market just kind of sits still. Airbnb is one I'm watching, although I do want it back down to the 92. So aside from that, I'm not touching it unless it gets back down to the 92. But I want to keep Airbnb on watch. I want to keep SQ on watch as well. Again, a lot of these mid caps did extremely well on this last little bull run. So I'm kind of watching this leg down. If we get some nice leg down, I might start buying some of these. Ideally, I like to get SQ at 52. It may not head back down there, but there is good support here at the 62. And then if it breaks below that, I'll probably start looking at buying. So I want to keep that on watch. BA, obviously, I don't like this one, but it needs a pullback. Looking for at least, hopefully, a 150 from where it's currently at. So it could be a big drop here. Again, the banks are in a situation that they really need a pullback, and they haven't had one yet. So we could be leading into that. Roblox, another big one. I would really like it down here around the 25. May not get that. May hold support here at 31. So kind of watching Roblox closely here at 31. Actually, let me put an alert there. And then the banks, JPM. Again, this is what I'm talking about. This huge parabolic move. This thing needs to pull back. Again, the longer it continues to run like this, the bigger the drop is going to be. So you're looking at least at a 119 drop from where it currently is. I think you're going to get more of a 61 drop, so around 115. It's probably more than likely what you're going to get out of that drop. The biggest thing key being, again, we're really running off of hopium, so we have to keep that in mind. But right now, I think this thing is looking to drop. Goldman Sachs, again, all these banks, just parabolic. You do not want this. This is the last thing you want in any kind of a quote-unquote pivot. You don't want parabolic moves like this. It's not. There's no strength in this. This is all hopium. And then when one bad piece of news or data drops, this whole thing's going to crashing down 50, 60% within a day or two. That's how quick it comes down. Again, you don't want these quick parabolic moves up like this. Bank of America, again, same thing. So that's pretty much what I got. Again, I don't want to make this video too much. There's not a lot going on. I think it might be pretty quiet for the next couple weeks. So just be mindful of that. I'm sure there'll be a lot of events going on because there's still a lot going on. We're still aiming towards December. We still got some big heavy hitters in value this week that could potentially drop some really interesting information. So those are things to keep on watch. Again, you do have the PPI tomorrow. In the morning pre-market. We'll see what that brings. Again, it kind of helps gauge where the consumer is at with prices and stuff. So just be mindful of that. Essentially, it checks the price increases over time. So we'll kind of see how that plays out and see what that does and how much weight that has tomorrow. Again, a lot of the data, which typically didn't have weight that I talked about before, has a little bit more weight now. Again, people are trying to guess what the Fed is doing, hopefully in hopes in lining up with their thesis about a 50-point basis move on the next meeting, monetary policy. Again, we'll have to see how that does play out. But if you've made it this far, I appreciate you. Go ahead and drop a like button. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.